Hey guys, this is kitamine from Instagram, and today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on rock props for an environment library. You can do any rocks you want from this, so just literally go wild and hopefully this tutorial helps you. So I actually use iPad Pro with Procreate, but this tutorial should be transferable across most drawing softwares. I've used other ones before and I've never had a problem with this, so yeah, I actually have my iPad set up in multitask mode so I can have my references on the right, and then in the upper left hand corner I have two little stone pillars that I've done before so I can take colour and style reference from it. On a new layer you're going to want to have your line art. My preferred lining tool is Dry Ink, which is a preset on Procreate, but you can use whatever you prefer. I'll start by literally scribbling everywhere. I tend to use trapeziums in this one, but you can use whatever you want. This is just so it creates a really natural, organic looking rock. Make sure that your shapes aren't all facing forward, so you're adding some tops and some sides to these rocks to give it a really good 3D look. And I also tend to add some little random extra rocks everywhere just to mix it up a bit and give it variety. But now that your line art layer is done, you want to create a new layer underneath it. So that will be your new base color layer. To pick your base color, you want to take a muted grey. This can be a reddish or bluish or greenish grey, it doesn't really matter which one. To fill in, I'm going to be using Nico's roll. You can download that online, but I've used a slightly edited version to give it a tapered edge, because that's just what I prefer, personally. You can also do this in all sorts of different colours. I've put some examples on the screen for you guys, so there's some reds, some greens and blues in there. Depending on what environment it's in or what lighting you need, you can easily use the curves to edit the colour here. Okay, so before we start our shadowing, you actually want to take your line art layer and put it on multiply and then take the opacity down, just so you can use it as a guide for your shadows rather than having a really harsh, horrible line there, as I find it can confuse me a bit actually. So with the shadow, I just take the same colour but maybe a bit colder or warmer and then a little bit darker as well. I begin by shading the bottom, as there will always be a drop shadow at the very bottom. The darkest bit is always usually at the bottom or in the middle of the cracks. So I just fill in where I see fit. Usually I'll also include cast shadows from the other rocks on the rocks behind them, and this will give it a better dimension. After that, I will take a second slightly lighter colour and shade the sides that aren't facing towards me. And then maybe I'll transition out that drop shadow and just gradient it naturally. Once again, I'll be going back and forth between my swatches just to make some of the shadows deeper or like add some random cracks, and it just maintains the dimension. Sometimes I go too far, sometimes I don't go far enough. So it's really just a matter of just looking at it and seeing what you think. Again, you can keep using the reference for this. Once you get used to it, it gets easier. And you can usually bring it from your memory as well. Next, I'll start darkening the separation lines between the rocks and deepening the cracks. If you bear in mind that the more surface level the crack is, the lighter it's going to be. So give it a bit of variation and it should keep it looking really nice and natural there. And finally, I will take my lightest colour and fill over the top of the rock, as I'm not putting any directional shading in it as it's a prop, and I would be adding that shading on when I put it in the environment and I know where the light is coming from. I'll also fill along as highlights for the tops of the cracks as well, just to make sure that they're really nice and detailed and seen. And then the very last part that you'll be shading on the rocks, with a slightly different shade, I use purple here, I start adding in really tiny details, so like different kinds of cracks and just putting them along the bottom just to give it a bit more colour and pop and stuff. And yeah, so that's the colouring of the rock itself. You can leave it like this if you want to, but I really like adding in some moss, and you can usually find moss in the middle of the cracks and at the bottom of rocks, so that's where I like to place it. The way I do moss is largely the same as how I do the rocks, so I just take a base colour and I just dot around, again scribbling because I am not a neat person. And then I'll take my darker colour to just shade it, and then I'll take another lighter yellower colour on the top to highlight. The very last thing I do is I'll make the background transparent and I'll go around the edge of the rock and just harshen out those lines to create a sharper effect, as a lot of the brushes I use are very soft. So all you have to do from here is just save it as a PNG, and you can take that and place that in all of your environments over and over and over again, and you have a very versatile little rock prop. Do let me know if you find this tutorial useful, as I'm not that good at environments and I've been trying to teach myself, so hopefully this will help someone else that was in my position about a month ago. And I have no idea how to end this video, so